Cassidy, one of your Indianapolis Colts cheerleaders, and you're watching the Believe in Colts podcast.
What's going on, Colts Nation? I'm Lawrence Owen. With me, as usual, is my guy, Jerraud Powers. And today we got a heck of an episode as the NFL playoffs is going on and the Indianapolis Colts head coaching search is, heavily underway. Jerraud, how you been since we last talked?
Been good, man. Been good. Day by day, taking one day at a time. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much. I've missed one call for the playoffs so far this year. I've gotten every winner of each game right except one, and we're going to get into that in the second half of this episode. But first thing we want to talk about, I want to kind of get a little bit into the Colts head coaching search. Now, obviously, they've already had the first round of interviews is over with. From what I understand, Ballard's cutting it down to 5. I don't know if he already has yet or not, but the big question is there's a couple big questions. We're going to get into both of them. First off, what kind of head coach should we get? Should we get a defensive-minded head coach or an offensive-minded head coach? What are your thoughts on that,
It becomes tricky when you're trying to get that specific. I think you're just trying to get whoever is the right fit for what you have in the locker room and the right fit for just the organization. You can go out there and just like when we got Frank Wright, we thought we was getting, this great offensive minded guy, which Coach Wright is a good offensive minded coach, but it just didn't fit because of the situation, Luck retiring, and then we're trying this quarterback and that quarterback. And, sometimes when you're trying to go the offensive route or defensive route, if everything else don't, align with that within the organization, sometimes it can go left a little bit. So, if I'm Chris Ballard at this very moment right now in the search, I'm just trying to find the right guy to fit what we have. I don't care if it's a defensive guy. I don't care if it's an offensive guy. If you come in my office and we're interviewing you and you just blow us, like just unbelievably have a great interview and just blow us out of the water to where we just know when you leave in that office that you're the guy, that's who I'm choosing. I don't care if you're a defensive-minded guy or an offensive-minded guy.
Oh, wow. So that kind of brings me to a second question, which I'm going to get to in just one moment. But for the most part, for right now, I want to remind everybody that BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting season. Everything from the NFL playoffs all the way to esports. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. The fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Make sure to use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, you talk about the interview and how big that is. Now, one of the guys that has been doing the interviews is Jeff Saturday, the interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. How heavy is that interview as opposed to his 1-7 record? How do you weigh that if you were a GM?
Well, when Jeff got the job, he didn't have time to do it how he wanted to do it. He was basically a Band-Aid to kind of hold the season, together. So, everybody that's judging, Jeff based off, the record as an interim coach. And I know he said that's what he wanted to be judged on. But for everybody to judge him, you got to think this guy, wasn't even thinking about being a head coach until this opportunity came. He wasn't at training camp. He wasn't at OTAs. He wasn't in the draft room. He didn't have time to implement, his ways about doing things. But one thing that I can say that Jeff did once he got the job, the offensive line got better, the run game got better. It was a lot of things that we were struggling with that end up being better with Jeff, at the helm. So it just lets you know his offensive mind and his ways of doing things, far as from, an O-line standpoint, running game standpoint, and just protecting the quarterback a little better. I think when Jeff, became the interim head coach, I don't think our quarterback was harassed as much as it was, previous. I think everything got better in that standpoint. So when you're interviewing Jeff now and you're hearing his ideas and his thoughts and what he would do from ground up, you got to take that into consideration, because like I said, even though he did go 1-7, as an interim head coach, he did improve a lot of things that were struggling, before he got there. So I mean, if Jeff was to get the job, I'll be eager to hear, what his philosophy is, and how he want to go about the offseason and doing things, what type of players he want on his roster and things like that. So when I hear Jim Irsay and others say that Jeff got a real shot, I believe him. I believe that Jeff got a real shot, because he is that type of guy. Once you get him in that room and interview him, and you hear his ideas and his philosophies and the things that he want to do, I'm pretty sure it's impressive.
Okay. So if Jeff Saturday walks into that interview room and blows Chris Ballard away, you're fully expecting him to probably choose him rather than, some other guy like a D'Amico Ryans or something.
Not technically. I mean, you can have a great interview and not get the job, essentially. I'm just more so saying I feel like Jeff has a legit shot at getting it. D'Amico Ryans come in there, he blows him out of the way, and maybe it's just something different about him and Jeff that they like D'Amico better. But I'm just more so saying that I can see Jeff having a great interview. I can see Jeff having a great interview that he's probably already had, with Jim and with Chris, because they know him. Jim has a relationship with him and all that. And Jeff's a bright guy. You talking about a guy that knows what he's doing, thinks the game through, played 14 years, can relate to the players, and all those type things. And then when you think about a guy like D'Amico or Eric, I can't even say his last name correctly. Yeah, I got like a little speech problem, but
fine.
But yeah, when you think about those guys, if they come in there and they just have a great interview and they're blowing it out the waters or whatnot, every interview, something's going to be different about each guy. Mm-hmm. So that's why I mean by, if I'm Chris and I'm Jim, I'm picking a guy that I feel just with what we have and in our situation and what we going on, I can just see this specific guy taking him and taking advantage of what we have, rather than somebody coming in and don't really have a great idea or thoughts on, what to do with this roster and this team.
Okay. Now they're being very, detailed in their search, going through a lot of different interviews, a lot of different people. How would you balance the fact that you want to get a head coach pretty quickly, because obviously, a lot of these candidates will be taken off the board as other, because there's quite a few head coaching vacancies. Some have already been filled, as opposed to, being detailed and getting the right guy. You know what I mean?
You can't rush it. I mean, you look at, D'Amico, I think I saw a report to where he canceled his interview with the Colts and the Cardinals, I believe, to focus on, what he got on his plate right now. And you got to respect that decision. Mm-hmm. And, when you look at the Colts and, them interviewing, 100 people so far, you want to hear everybody out. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to take their time to make sure they can get D'Amico in that room and respect his decision to kind of focus on what he got, at the helm right now, and get things going. I think you just make sure that you got to have a head coach either sometime before the Super Bowl or right after the Super Bowl, just because you got the draft coming up, you got the combine coming up, you got all these important dates that's about to happen right when the season's over. So you want to make sure you got your guy in place and the plan is in place, and you're in the off season ready to execute everything.
So would you say that the deadline for hiring a head coach is maybe like a week after the Super Bowl?
Or a week before the Super Bowl, because normally in the Super Bowl you get 2 weeks to prepare. So I can see some more interviews and maybe a decision being made like the week before the Super Bowl, where if it is a D'Amico Ron, he'll still have the opportunity to finish out his season and finish out, Super Bowl duties and all that. As soon as it's over, he'll pack his bags and get to Indy. But if it's somebody that's not in that type of situation, of course you'll see a decision, before then, I think.
Okay. Does a lot of people have one other specific thing that kind of make them lean one way or another when it comes to fandom anyhow, and that's whether or not a head coach calls plays, whether it's defensively or offensively. There's a lot of people that do not want their head coach to make play calls. They want let the coordinators make the play calls and let them lead the team and game manage, basically. Is there a way that maybe you lean towards in this situation?
I think if you're getting a former head coach that's been doing it, as a head coach his whole career, I think you let him do it. I think it is hard. I do think it is hard to call plays and manage a football game from every perspective, just because as a head coach, you got to be like the game manager for all three phases of the game, know exactly what's going on and not necessarily just focusing on whether it's defensive play calling or offensive play calling. But if it's a new up and coming coach, like a new head coach that's never been in this position before, I wouldn't recommend a new coach calling plays and trying to figure out everything else on the fly, unless you just got a veteran staff that knows how to handle everything. But it's only so many people that can do it. You don't see it in the league as much. You got a handful of guys that do it. But it's a hard job to do as a head coach, just because you don't want to miss something just because you're focused on one side of the ball and not the totality of the game. And just my opinion, though.
So the Colts right now do not have a starting quarterback. How big of an effect is that going to have when it comes to bringing coaches in for interviews and selling your team as the team that, a guy would want to be as a head coach?
I don't think it's going to be an issue for coaches, just because normally when you're getting coaches to come in or you're hiring guys or whatever the case may be, it's a job upgrade for those guys. So when you're talking about career moves to where you're getting, bumped up, normally coaches look at that as a great opportunity to prove themselves, especially if you don't have a quarterback right now, and them coming in and whatever guy becomes the quarterback, making him, big as possible or great as possible, is only going to help their resume in the coaching world. So normally when you're in this type of situation and, you got to find this guy or that guy and you got to hire this person or that person, is normally an upgrade, in the coaching world for guys, and they look at it as a huge opportunity to prove themselves.
Okay. Well, this past weekend we had a heck of a slate of games, 4 of them to be exact, and they were very interesting. Let's jump into the first game of the week, and that was the Jags at the Chiefs. And boy, the first half, I thought this game was over.
Yeah. Chiefs look like how, we expect the Chiefs to look. Then all of a sudden, boom, little Nick here, Nick there, Pat Mahomes, is he hurt, whatever the case may be. And then it seemed like Jacksonville just got some momentum going in their favor, and they end up making this thing a game. I think I said I thought it was going to be a close type of game last week on the pod, and that's what it ended up being. But you just see the stage and the magnitude of everything at stake. You can look at Kansas City and tell they got a lot of veteran guys that's been in this type of situation, and it seemed like they were poised under pressure once the momentum switched a little bit. And then when you look at Jacksonville, you can tell it was a brand new stage for those guys. A lot of guys haven't felt that type of pressure when you're on the road, big time playoff game, big time atmosphere. We saw Christian Kirk have a drop, that was huge. We see Trevor Lawrence not making certain throws and certain reads. But when you look at this Jacksonville team, man, going forward, I think the league has kind of been put on notice that they're going to have to be somebody that, everybody's going to have to deal with in the AFC for the next few years.
Yeah, this was a game late in the fourth quarter. I mean, we thought, I don't know what, about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter of this game, the momentum completely shifted.
Yep.
It looked like Jacksonville was going to make another comeback and win this game. and then 2 turnovers in the last 4 minutes of the game, right? One
Yep.
at the 5-yard line. That fumble completely changed the entire outlook of this game. And that kind of shows, like what you're talking about. These are new guys, right?
Yep.
These guys ain't used to being in this situation. I mean, Peterson has, but, the players out there on the field haven't, most of them. And, they're going to make mistakes, and that really hurts you long term.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things to where when you're making certain mistakes in certain games, it's hard to overcome it, especially when you're on the road. I mean, you look at Jacksonville the week before, 4 interceptions in the first quarter. They come back and win after being down 27-0. That's not normal. That normally doesn't happen. So when you go on the road and you're having some of the same mistakes going on, some of the same situations, I think it was just I don't want to say a wake-up call, but I guess, the game of football proved to be true in this aspect of it. When you're making turnovers on the road and you're making mistakes, it's just hard to overcome and win.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs' defense really won this game for them. As much as you want to talk about, Patrick Mahomes is, fighting through his injury and Kelce's out there doing Kelce things, I felt like this Chiefs defense came out there and just played some hard-nosed football the entire 60 minutes.
No, Chiefs defense played some good ball, man. They look good. Secondary playing tight coverage, D-line getting after it, linebackers flying around. So yeah, the Chiefs definitely came up big, especially in the clutch when the game's on the line. They needed turnovers, and that's what they got. But you mentioned Travis Kelce. I mean, it's crazy to think that, he is great as he is just because, like, when you're game planning, trust me, like, it's a lot of people out there that be saying, like, how can Travis Kelce get this open? Like, how do we not see two people? Like, when you're game planning, trust me, I'm pretty sure Mike Caldwell and those defensive guys on the staff of Jacksonville let every person know in that defensive room, hey, we got to know where 87's at all times. But sometimes when you're facing, good offensive coordinators and good offensive schemes, they do a good job in making sure they're creating matchups they want. And Travis Kelce, man, I mean, you're talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer that's still putting up great numbers year after year. And I mean, it's just unbelievable to watch, especially when we're talking about playoff football, because he knows he's the focus. He knows that he's going to face double teams and stuff like that throughout the game. And to see him still be as productive in the big moment, man, it's impressive.
Absolutely. Now, Travis Kelce is 33 years old and still playing at an all-pro level. Wow. At tight end, that's pretty darn impressive. Where would you rank Travis Kelce all time at the tight end position?
Ooh, that's a good one. Obviously, Tony Gonzalez is, up there. If he's not 1, he's 2. I mean, Shannon Sharp is up there. If I'm top 4, top 5. I mean, when you look at his numbers, I want to say he's went over 1,000 yards like every single year. Almost every single year of his career, however many touchdowns every single year. I mean, it's just hard not to deny the numbers, when it comes down to, ranking him all time and stuff like that. I mean, one year he damn near led the league in reception. I mean, in yards. From a tight end position, he almost led the league, or he did lead the league. It was one of those years it was real close. So, I mean, I'm not familiar with all the great tight ends that have played this game. Obviously, I mean, I played against Tony Gonzalez, and I know, Gronk's definitely up there. But I think Travis had made his case to be top 5, top 3, however you want to put it, because you can't deny his numbers at the end of the day.
Oh no, you're absolutely right. This dude has went to 7 straight Pro Bowls, 7 straight Pro Bowls since 2015, and. You talked about, all these years in a row of being over 1,000 yards. He's been over 1,000 yards since the 2016 season.
Gotcha.
Every year. Every stinking year. And 4 All-Pros. Dude has been an absolute phenom since he's walked into the league. Obviously, it's his rookie year didn't go quite the way he wanted. Didn't really get much, play time in that situation. But from 2014 on, he has just been an absolute stud and shows no signs. He's like the Tom Brady of the tight ends. I mean, this dude shows no signs of slowing down at all.
He got swag. He got culture about him. He ain't scared of nothing. He's a dog. And then he got a brother that's going to be in the Hall of Fame as well. So that's a pretty cool story. Pretty cool story with them too.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the other game, the Giants and Eagles. This was by far the biggest wow.
I think it was one of those prove it games for the for the Eagles. I don't think they wanted to play around at all. They didn't want to make this, a game in the fourth quarter. I think they wanted to jump out on these boys fast and just keep the foot on the pedal the entire game. And that's what it looked like. I mean, the Giants had a great year getting to this point. And getting there, I actually thought this game was going to be a lot closer just because of the rivalry, division foes, and things like that. But shoot, that Eagles defense, Jalen Hurts and that offense and those weapons, I mean, they look dangerous. But I did see AJ Brown a little upset on the sideline, and I don't know if it was from a standpoint of production or certain plays or not getting the ball, but you normally don't see superstars like that upset when you're winning as big as you're winning. So I saw him on the sideline kind of brushing some people off. I wonder, is there any smoke with that going on? But from the outside looking in, man, Eagles offense, Eagles defense, special teams, I mean, they're locked in. They're locked in for sure.
Yeah, Eagles didn't have to throw the ball that much, right? And A.J. Brown only had 3 catches for 22 yards. So I understand the situation that he's going through. I think they had a total of like 150 yards passing this entire game, right? They went to the ground. And, when you have a good run game, you lean on that. I mean, they had over 200 yards rushing, 260 yards rushing, if I remember correctly, 270 maybe. And that's what Jalen Hurts 35 yards rushing. But Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, those guys really ground and pounded the football very, very well. And you talk about the defense holding the Giants down to 0. I mean,
there wasn't nobody open. There was no run lanes open. I mean, they were locked in. I mean, you could just tell they played mistake-free football. Wasn't any MAs. It wasn't any busts out there. Everybody was locked in, making plays on the ball, gang tackling, Barkley, doing everything that you got to do in playoff football for the defense for sure.
Absolutely. They were getting to Daniel Jones a lot in this game. 5 sacks for the Eagles defense. And, they didn't create a lot of turnovers. There was 1 interception, no fumbles.
A lot of 3-and-outs, though. A lot of 3-and-outs.
Absolutely. Time of possession was heavily in the Eagles' favor. They had more than 10 minutes more of the football than what the Giants did. And when you held the time of possession that much, and you're running the football and doing it effectively, that dictates the entire game. The entire game.
Yeah, especially when you can't move the ball. When you can't move the ball and, it's punt after punt and, the other side is getting it and your defense is out there fighting their butts off. But, at some point it's going to break. I mean, you just saw a different physical type of style that the Eagles, brought. And I mean, that's playoff football at the end of the day. You want to win by any means necessary. It ain't necessarily got to be the prettiest, but when you watch that game, it just looked like a more physical football team. And it seemed like that's what, they wanted to do going into that game, is just show that physicality.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons why A.J. Brown might have been a little upset. Now, obviously, I'm just, kind of taking guesses here. I don't know for sure, obviously, but I mean, like I said, Hurts didn't throw the ball very much, 150 yards, ran the ball only 30 yards. They didn't throw it very much. It's weird when you're talking about how Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown are not making, all the impactful plays. Now, Devonta had a couple big plays. Yeah. A couple big plays, including that touchdown. But for the most part, you're right. I mean, the Eagles showed the world we're not just that team. We don't have to just rely on everything Jalen Hurts. We can run the football down your throat. And when you're multidimensional like that, that's scary.
No, that's very scary. That's why I can't wait, for this next matchup with them and the 49ers, because the 49ers pride themselves off being physical as well. Defense, offense, special teams. So it's going to be in Philly. That's going to be one to watch.
Absolutely. Another game that was a bit of a blowout, and I'm surprised that the Bills even put points on the board in this game. The Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills. Cincinnati blows them out right out the gates. Bills looked bad from the start, and the Bengals offense looked unstoppable in the slushy ass snow out there at that, and they're throwing the ball around like left and right. No one could stop anybody. What's your thoughts on this game?
I mean, they look like the identity of their quarterback. I mean, you look at Joe Burrow and how he carries himself and what he represents, and it just seems like he's bleeded through the entire team, and everybody carries the same swag, the same confidence. I mean, you interview Joe Burrow, and they ask about a window, and he says, "It's my whole career." You talk to Jamar Chase or Boyd or any of those receivers, and they're saying, "Can't nobody guard us? Can't nobody do it?" It's just a certain confidence that when the Bengals walk into your stadium or walk onto any field, that you know that they're bringing their A game at the end of the day, and you're gonna have to be good to beat them. So for them to go up there and play the Bills, they were already pissed off about them having a neutral site for the AFC Championship and selling tickets and doing all that stuff. So they went up there with a little chip on their shoulder, and it looked like they were the team that's used to the snow, used to the bad weather, and used to all these type things. And they didn't blink an eye. And then when you look at the Bills side of the ball, it just looked like everybody is frustrated. It just looked like everybody is not on the same page. I mean, you got Stephon Diggs telling Josh Allen to throw the ball up early in the game, stop throwing it low. Then you got them arguing on the sideline. And their defense has been banged up all year. And I mean, it's a testament, to their defensive coordinator, Leslie Frazier, that they were so good all year without some of their main pieces. And I just think in the playoffs, I mean, it just kind of hurt them that they, had so many injuries and, just couldn't hold up to their side of the stick. But, the Bengals, I didn't think that they were going to get it done, especially off of last year, them having the momentum, Joe Burrow getting beat up, offensive line can't protect them. I thought it was a little bit of momentum that got them to the Super Bowl. I definitely knew that they were going to be good this year, but I didn't see them getting back to the AFC Championship. And they got a legit shot in getting back to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
I mean, Joe Burrow's beaten Pat Mahomes every time he's played him so far. So here we go on another big stage. And I know Pat want this one. I know Pat Mahomes wanted this game right here. So another big stage, and it seemed like Joe Burrow thrives in these type of moments. So I think Vegas is gonna have a great betting situation with this one right here coming up.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, when it comes to the running game in this game was so important. I mean, so important. I mean, you're sitting here in snow, slush, freezing cold weather out there. And the Bengals run the ball, non-quarterback runs 28 times. The Bills non-quarterback runs 11. All right. And to me, that shows the whole game, right? I mean, I understand the Bills don't do a lot of non-quarterback runs, but traditionally, even though they don't do it often, they usually are still pretty darn effective. Where do you put the loss on this? Is this a Josh Allen thing? Or is this a play calling thing?
I mean, I just think it's the entire team. Like I said, defensively, a lot of injuries, beat up. I'm talking like superstar injuries, beat up. And then when you look at offensively, I remember at the trade deadline, everybody was thinking Christian McCaffrey, was a possibility of going to the Bills. So they knew they needed, a solid running back to get their run game going. And I think in the playoffs, obviously, defensive coordinators are going to try to expose your weaknesses. And at the end of the day, the Bills don't have a solid running game. And I think they were exposed a little bit. And then when you have to throw it as much as they were trying to throw it, when it's bad conditions like that, I mean, it's not going to be great. I mean, it's just too hard to do. The ball's wet. Wide receivers don't have the best grip. You can't run your routes like how you normally run your routes. And defensively, you're kind of sitting and waiting, pretty much. I mean, it's hard still because you got to deal with the traction and all those things too. But when you're guarding Stephon Diggs and you ain't got to worry about him making 2 or 3 moves just because of the conditions are too bad, and you're going to slip or you're going to do stuff like that, it kind of eases your mind a little bit, as a defender. So when you're trying to throw it that much in those type of conditions, I mean, I think they were exposed that, this offseason, they got to go get a run game at the end of the day. I mean, they have to.
As a former quarterback.
And not to cut you off, but the last 3-4 games, Josh Allen has had a turnover problem. And I think it definitely needs to be addressed. I mean, we put a lot of expectations on the Bills this year, and going into this offseason and going into this season, everybody had them as Super Bowl favorites, or a lot of people did. And so one of the first times they had to deal with that type of pressure. And then we see towards the end of the year, Josh Allen over 30 turnovers, the last 4 or 5 games, whether it's fumbles, picks, or whatever the case may be. This season, that's uncharacteristic, and we're going to have to see him improve this offseason as well from that aspect.
Absolutely. The Bills had 8 penalties in this game. Trey White had half of them in this game. As a former cornerback, what would you, take me through what's going on with Trey White in this game?
I don't know. When you have a couple penalties, definitely going to mess up your confidence a little bit. But he's one of those type of corners. He's going to play his style of football. And as a professional, you got to adjust the way that the game is being called. And you expect to see him adjust. But sometimes it's one of those games when you're playing against the best receiver and you're matching up. And you're in those type of situations, and the ball is going to come to you, and you're targeted. You're going to have them close, type calls to where they just don't go in your favor. And, you never as a corner want to have, 4 penalties in a game. That's a horrible, horrible day to have. But once you got a couple and then you realize the situation, like you're down and you're losing and you're trying to make a play and you're trying to just do something to get the ball back or switch the momentum, you're going to be aggressive sometimes. And sometimes those calls are just going to go the opposite way.
Okay. Last game. Oh, the last night game, that was a defense fest, quite frankly. Now, Dak did not look good in this game, in my opinion, at all. I think he should have thrown 4 interceptions.
Yeah, I think it was 2 that was dropped.
Yeah, he had 2 that was caught, and I believe there was 2 that was just dropped, and he hit defenders right in the hand, made breaks on the ball. They hit him in the hands, they dropped him. One of them was Greenlaw, I think. Had he caught that, it's pick 6 the other way.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad. But they still kept it close because we talked about how good these defenses on both the sides of the teams are. This game came down to the wire. It was a 7-point game, 12-19. What a weird score for an NFL game.
But we knew Brock Purdy has not been in this type of situation before, so I didn't expect them to just light it up on the offensive side just because Dallas has a great defense as well, great pass rush, got some good guys in the secondary. And then on the flip side, everybody knows San Fran has had the top defense all year in the league as well. So you knew Dak was going to be under duress. You knew he was going to be under some pressure. Didn't expect him to play as bad as he played, especially coming off of how he played the week before. But give a testament to DeMeco Ryans and his scheme and how he was baiting Dak to do certain things. And, I think sometimes Dak seemed like he was getting rid of the ball a little bit late, like he was a half a second late in letting the ball go. And whether that's the pass rush getting to his face to allow time, or that's Dak, not realizing what the coverage is and maybe second guessing himself, because it just seems like some of those balls, it was just, not on time. So, I love the defensive games when it comes to the playoffs, just because, you can just see everybody that's locked in from that side and the offense trying to figure it out or just trying to break that code. And then once it's broke, it just seems like the floodgates will be open. But it seemed like both defenses kept the offense at bay. And, San Fran found ways to make plays toward the end of the game to separate themselves.
I think it had I think you're right. And it's about your playmakers making plays. And
winning their matchups.
Exactly. And, defensively, the Cowboys, I think they came in with the game plan to stop Christian McCaffrey and get in the face of Brock Purdy. And I think they did pretty much the entire game. But you still got Deebo Samuel and George Kittle out there. And if you can't stop them as well, that's just not going to be a good game.
See, like you mentioned, George Kittle, with all these other weapons that, the 49ers have, I think we've kind of relaxed on Kittle a little bit just because he's not the type of guy that complains. He's not the guy that's, going on the sideline, wondering why he's not getting the ball. And then you play a game like he played, the other day. and he's the one that's making the big catches and the unbelievable, this and that. So, I mean, it just shows you the type of team and the type of vets that those guys have. I mean, those guys just want to win. There's nobody complaining about not getting this or not doing this or why are we doing this. I mean, I think they realize the situation. They got a rookie quarterback that needs all those vets and everybody around him to be on the same page, just because this is only Brock's 7th start, and nobody expected him to be in this dang position. So he's not the one that's the vocal leader or the main one that's leading the troops. I mean, he's still in the follow mode just because he don't know what the hell is going on. He's never been in this situation. I mean, I think you saw Kyle Shanahan blowing him up one time for just trying to do too much on one play. I think he was scrambling, trying to do something, and threw the ball away late to where it could have been a pick or something like that. And he goes to the sideline, and you see Shanahan covering his mouth, but you could tell Shanahan was giving him an earful just because you don't want Brock in a situation where he has to win the game for you. You got too many playmakers and you're too good of a team to where it's like, Brock, just manage the game, do what you've been doing, let everybody else go out there and win it. And I think that's been the key to the 49ers success since he's been at the helm.
It seems like every year in the playoffs, George Kittle makes a catch he has no business catching. No business at all. And this game, he had one over the middle that I don't know how he caught that football. He reached out there and tipped that to himself like 5 times and still came down with it.
And Diggs closed his eyes or something. It should have been a kill shot by Diggs, and he just closed his eyes or did something and just totally missed him. But that was a hell of a play by Kittle for sure, and staying focused and making sure he got that grab.
Absolutely. Diggs dropped an interception.
He did. And he got some of the best hands in the league. Yep. I'm talking about he dropped an easy one.
Yes, he did. But again, now we got a game that, in all honesty, this is kind of expected. I think most people saw both these championships that we're getting ready to see. At least close, right?
Yeah.
Chiefs, Bengals. It was good. We all thought it was going to be Chiefs, Bengals, or
Bills. Yep.
Right. And then I think most people saw the Eagles and Niners coming out of this. So not a whole lot of big surprises coming out, but still good game over on the divisional weekend. Any final words before we end this episode?
Nah, man, I'm looking forward to this. The Eagles 49ers. I mean, you got Jalen Hurts. And even though it's his, second year, I mean, he's playing like a savvy vet. And then you look on the other side and you got Brock Purdy, who's in his 7th start, and he don't know nothing else but win. I mean, he hasn't even faced a loss yet as a starter. But what's cool about them two is their last year, Jalen Hurts last year in college, him and Brock Purdy went at it, when Brock was at Iowa State. And I think Brock threw for 3 or 4 touchdowns, almost 300 yards, and Jalen Hurts has similar numbers. So they're familiar with going against each other. So it's kind of cool for the NFC Championship to be these two young quarterbacks when we're in a league with so many veteran guys and all those type things. It just feels like the younger generation of quarterbacks are starting to, push their way up into the conversation of, franchise guys around the league.
Okay. All right. Well, this was Believe in Colts, brought to you by Bet Online. I'm Lawrence Owen. That was Jerraud Powers. And as usual, go Colts.
Do you believe?